for exercise 1, we're gonna work with Halep Inc. Borrowed $30,000 from Davis Bank and signed a 4-year note payable stating the interest rate was 4% compounded annually. Halep Inc. will make payments of $8,264.70 at the end of each year. Prepare an amortization table showing the principal and interest in each payment. Okay, so he starts off with a $30,000 loan. It says that the payments will be $8,264.70. So $8,264.70. And the payment actually is going to be the same all the way through, so we can mark that down. The payment never changes. The interest, it says, is 4% compounded annually. So we can take 30,000 and multiply that by 4%. And we get 1,200 for the first year. So of this payment, 1,200 is going to go to interest, and the rest is going to go to principal. So if I take the payment minus the interest, I'll get what's going to go to principal. And then the ending balance is going to be what the beginning balance was minus whatever went to principal. Then we bring this number, this ending balance, down to the beginning of year 2. Why didn't it like that? That one. There we go. So we had paid it down, so the new balance this year is going to be what we're going to pay the interest on. So $22,935.30. Our payment is the same. The interest, however, is going to be different because it's going to be paid on this. So times 4%. So it's only $917.41 versus last year it was $1,200 because we've paid down the balance. What goes to principal is we have the payment minus the interest. And then what the ending balance is, we take the beginning balance minus what went to our principal, and we have our ending balance, which our ending balance we take and we move down here. It just doesn't like every time I do that. Let's just not try and do that, and I'll type it out. So there we go. So 15,588.01. Interest is going to be 4%, and that's going to round. You need to round that to just a full dollar, so $623.52. So type that in, $623.52. What goes to principal is payment minus what went to interest. And then for the ending balance, we take our beginning balance minus what went to principal. And we have $79.46.84. So we take that down. That becomes our new amount. And then we multiply that times 4% for the interest. Times 4, 317.87. Okay. So we've got the original payment minus the interest. Says that's what's going to go to principal. So that minus that equals $79.46.83. And we've got a little bit of rounding issues just because it's a little different up here. Let's see. It could have been 50. Let me see what it was before I rounded it. We had that times 4. Okay, so it should have been 52. That's my fault. 623.52. 623.52. 52. And then, so that made that 83. So that should have been 83. But even though I can fix this one, sometimes you can't fix them because you can't split a penny. Sometimes it's just a little bit rounding differences. But in this one, we can get it to match perfect. So for the ending balance, we take what our beginning balance was minus what we applied to principal, and we're at 0. So that worked out perfect for us, minus my 1 cent error up there originally. But even if you would have kept that error, it really isn't an error, because like I said, some rounding issues you can't completely resolve when it's at the penny level. All right, for exercise 2, we have Beluga Inc. issued 10-year bonds with a face value of $100,000 and a stated rate of 3% when the market rate was 4%. Interest was paid annually. The bonds were sold at 87.5. What was the sales price of the bond? Were they issued at a discount, premium, or par? Okay. So discount, premium, actually, let me write it this way, par, premium. So when they're issued at par, it's 100%. It's exactly what you were asking for. If it's a premium, it's anything over 100. If it's at a discount, it's anything under 100. So another way to look at it, so that's one way to look at it. We know that this was issued at 87.5, so we know it was issued at a discount. Another way to look at it is it had a stated rate of 3%. So we can put 3%, and the market rate was 4%. So if the stated rate is below the market rate, market. So the market rate, if you're exactly at the market rate, it is at par. But if it's above the market rate, you usually get a premium. If it's below the market rate, you get a discount, or you have to take a discount for people to buy your bonds. So we know that they sold it at a discount, and the sale price of the bond is simply 87.5 times the face value of the bond. So it would be 100,000 times 0.875. So 87,500. For 3, we have Christian Inc. issued 10-year bonds with a face value of $100,000, a stated rate of 4% when the market rate was 6%. Interest was paid semi-annually. Calculate and explain the timing of the cash flows the purchaser of the bonds or the investor will receive throughout the bond term. Would an investor be willing to pay more or less for this bond? Okay, so the bond is $100,000. So, and it says that it has a stated rate of 4%, and it pays semi-annually. So 2 times a year or half a year. Each half year you're going to get a payment. So the interest payments are going to be 100,000 times 4% times half a year. So they're going to get interest payments of $2,000 2 times a year for 10 years, because this is a 10-year bond. It says that, okay, we had the market, which we know is at par, and that is going to be at 100. Anything above 100 is going to sell at a premium. Anything below 100 is going to sell at a discount. Now they didn't tell us, they didn't tell us what it was, if it was sold at 100, 87, 102. They didn't tell us that, and that's fine. We don't need that, because we know that if we look at it and we go, well, the market rate right now is 6%, and our rate is 4%. So we know that our rate is lower than the market, so people are going to want a discount to buy it. So it is going to sell at a discount. All right, then we move on to 4. We have, on January 2018, Wauwatosa Inc. issued 5-year bonds with a face value of $200,000 and a stated interest rate of 12%, payable semi-annually on July 1st and January 1st. the bonds were sold to yield 10%. Assuming the bonds were sold at 107.732, what is the selling price of the bonds, and were they issued at a discount or a premium? Okay. It kind of says it a little sloppy, but this is the bonds were sold to yield 10%. That is talking about the market. It's not talking about this bond. This bond is at 12%, and they're talking about other bonds, although the way they said that is definitely a little sloppy and confusing. So we know that a bond sells for a discount if the rate is below the market, and we know it sells for a premium if it's above the market. This problem said that the market was at 10%, so that would be at par, it'd be 100%, it would be the value if it was selling exactly for 10%. This bond is selling for 12%, so we know it's selling for a premium. And then it asks what the selling price of the bond is. Oh, it did tell us, assuming the bonds were sold at 107.732. I guess I just didn't read down the problem enough. So we know 107.732. If it was sold at par, it'd be 100. Anything less than 100 would be a discount. So 107.732. All right, and then it wants to know how much people paid. Well, that one we just take what it's sold for and multiply it by the sales price. So we've got 200,000 times 1.0772. Remember that we have to, this is percentage, stated in terms of percentages, so we have to convert it to a decimal, so we move the decimal point over twice, converting a percentage to a decimal. So the selling price would have been $215 and $215,464. Let's jump to the B exercises. So for exercise 1, we've got Sharapovich Inc. borrowed $50,000 from Kerber Bank and signed a 5-year note stating the interest rate was 5% and he'll make payments of $11,584, $548, and $74. So we can put our payments in, $548 and 74 cents. Those are not going to change, so we can just put those in each slot. We know the beginning balance he has is going to be $50,000, and then his interest is at 5%. So you take that, multiply it by 5%. How much went to principal? We take the payment minus what went to interest, the rest went to principal. Then the ending balance is the beginning balance minus what went to principal. And then we take that number and it comes down to here. So 40,951 and 26. And then we figure the interest again, which is that times 0.05. How much goes to principal? Well, we take the payment minus what went to interest. And then the ending balance is what the beginning balance was minus what went to principal during that period. And then so on. So I think you guys can finish that one. Remember, when you get down at the bottom, you might have just cents off, and that's fine. It's just, you might have rounding differences. Can't split pennies. For exercise 2B2, we have the Whalen sisters issued 3-year bonds with a par value of $100,000 and a 6% annual coupon. Or remember, during our Module 1 lecture, the coupon rate is the interest rate. They just call it different things. So 6% interest rate, and the market rate of interest was 5%. So market is at par, and that's at 100. And market was at market rate was at 5%. Excuse me. And our rate is at 6%, so it is above the market rate, so it would be selling for a premium. Oops, 6%. Okay. If the bonds sold at 102.438, so like I said, it sold for a premium, and we could tell that before it even told us. We just didn't know how much more. How much cash did the Williams sisters receive from issuing the bonds? Well, we take this and we multiply it by that $100,000. Remember, we have to convert it to a decimal because this is actually it's stated in terms of percentages. So we're going to take 100,000 and multiply it by 1.02438. So they paid, or they would have received $102,438 for this bond issuance. For exercise 3, we have Smashing Cantaloupes, Inc. issued 5-year bonds with a par value of $35,000 and an 8% semi-annual coupon interest rate, payable on June 30th and December 31st on January 1st, 2018, when the market rate was 10%. So we have a market rate now that is higher than what we are paying. So the market rate's paying 10%, we are paying 8%. So we know that we're going to have offered it. We're going to have to offer a discount for people to take it. So were the bond issued at discount or premium? Discount. Assuming the bonds sold at 92.288, what was the sales price of the bonds? So we take 0.92288 and multiply it by the price of the bonds. I have 35,000. It doesn't like my comma. So they sold them for $32,300.80. They had to take a discount on the $35,000 value to get them to sell because they weren't giving as much interest as everybody else in the market was. Then for 4, we have Chung Inc. issued $50,000 of 3-year bonds on January 1st, 2018, with a stated rate of 4% and a market rate of 4%. So exactly what the market's selling for. The bonds paid semi-annually on June 30th and December 31st. How much money did the company receive when the bonds were issued? The bonds would be quoted at what rate? Okay, so this isn't a trick or anything. They are sold exactly for what the market is. It's equal with the market, so they are sold at par. And the selling price of bonds is exactly what they asked. They didn't have to take a discount. They didn't get a premium for it. They sold it for exactly what they asked. Very simple. Okay.